Hello, I'm Dale Matthews. Welcome to Inside News, and joining us tonight, as usual, is Mike Jones. Hello, Mike Jones.
Oh, I was gonna, come off like Paul Harvey. Stand by for news.
Right. He always spoke in that little
Yes.
squeaky voice, so yes, that sounded just exactly like him.
Yes, I can't do it. No one can do it exactly like Paul Harvey did it, or at least no one I know.
So it seems to me that the county commissioners felt that they were perhaps going to have some kind of position where Cheryl Walker could finally have the kind of control that she wanted, that she never found when she was in the state legislature. That Simon Hare thought that this is a wonderful stepping stone to the next state position that he would have, and probably Keith Heck thought that he would relax in a kind of a rocking chair, and that he would be, thought of as a leader in the area, and nobody was really going to get up and criticize them. I mean, why would you do that? Where does that happen? Why would that be part of the equation? That rocking chair turned out to be a hot seat for these guys, and it's never ending. And one of the reasons why is because they're living by the old rules, in my personal opinion, and that they think that you can get away with lying or handing out contracts to pals or whatever, and that nobody's going to object because they didn't that much before. And there used to be a newspaper that would gloss over the details and not report any of this. Mike?
Yeah, and this is an interesting thing because there does seem to sort of be a wave across the nation. People want different government, and it's been said in a number of different places that if you want to do this, you really have to start out locally. But could you imagine if here we had the people that would not tolerate government as usual from their politicians? It would change everything, and it'd be like a wildfire that began here and swept all over the place. Because if it became very, very clear that pork and favors and things of that nature just are not tolerated here, and we had politicians that were actually in line with that sort of thing, I think that would make news to a lot of these other counties. They would think, if these guys can do that there, we might be able to do that here.
That's the
And
problem. That's the
right.
problem for Salem. Imagine if this happened. This would be in the Wall Street Journal with the kind of money problems that we have. If a couple of fiscal conservatives got in, found a couple of places where money could be cut back, where employees or the kind of belonging to organizations and going off on trips and that kind of stuff could be cut back, and you would set aside, let's say, for every registered voter, every tax payer, you would issue within the first year a $50 check from the county government. Think of the
Now Dale's buying votes. This is Josephine County's own Bernie Sanders. No, you can't do that, Dale. Don't do that.
Interesting you said that, Mike, because I went to a meeting of the Oath Keepers last night, where Joseph Rice reigns supreme. I mean, he's top dog there, absolutely. And he went into a long rendition of some of the things that have been happening. But before all this started, I had a guy come up to me that I've never met before, and he said, "Well, what would you do?" I don't know if he knows anything about me, but he said, "What would you do if you were in charge?" And I said, "Well, the first thing I would do is I would hand over the power back to the people." "Why would you do that?" Is it because they deserve it?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So there are a lot of people who are getting kind of alarmed that this is coming, that there is a potential for some actual change, not just changing the chairs on the Titanic kind of thing, but some real change, not radical change, burn down the house kind of change, not burn Sanders, not that, but the idea that instead of we go to a meeting and you've got to pay attention, you got to look up here, you got to pay homage to us, everybody reports to us. Instead, they're just the servants, and they're supposed to report to the people who are paying their salary. Imagine if that really happened. Things would be just a little bit different in this county. So here's what I had to say. Get this blathery stuff out of the way. Here's what I had to say. I'm hoping you find it a little bit amusing at the weekly business session, which happened Wednesday.
Dale Matthews, Grants Pass. I go to all the commissioners' meetings. I go to more of the commissioners' meetings than they go to, and I take my camera bag with me. Got wet the other day, and when I reached inside, I discovered that it had a little piece of cardboard in it. Started me thinking about this little piece of cardboard. See, a little piece of cardboard that's accompanied me to more commissioners' meetings over the years than everybody in this room combined. This little piece of cardboard never lies to you. Sure, it's just a piece of cardboard, but it has that advantage. This little piece of cardboard never uses our money to go off to a meeting and then gets thrown in jail. Never happens to a little piece of cardboard. A little piece of cardboard does not claim that it didn't say something in a meeting, and then it was proven when it said something in a meeting, then claims that it was all faked. Not going to get that from a little piece of cardboard. A little piece of cardboard has some other advantages in that it doesn't break the law, state law, then claim that it didn't break state law, and then admit that it did break state law, and then claim that it doesn't mean anything. No, not going to get that from a little piece of cardboard. A little piece of cardboard doesn't come up with a plan to pay somebody to write happy, jolly articles about itself, and then come up with the idea that perhaps it'll even pay to put those articles in the newspaper because maybe it doesn't want to print such happy, jolly articles about just a little piece of cardboard. A little piece of cardboard doesn't blow up in size, well, except maybe when it gets a little bit wet, and then suddenly think that it's all that and a bag of chips simply because it's the leader of a little county in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't have delusions of grandeur. It's simply a little piece of cardboard. So I would posit that my candidacy for Josephine County Commissioner and that of Raymond Smith and this little piece of cardboard is superior to that of some city officials and county officials added together, mostly because this little piece of cardboard is never going to lie to me. And it does help support the work that I do on behalf of the citizens of Josephine County. Any questions for me? Hearing none, I'll sit down.
All that from a piece of cardboard. Wow.
You just got to have a little fun every once in a while. Does anybody have any fun up there? Really, does anybody? These guys have no sense of humor, no sense of irony, that's for sure. They don't know what this means over my shoulder. So this show tonight is about a few more people that had things to say to the commissioners and want some answers. I don't know. In all of the 5:30 meetings that I've seen over the years, I've never seen so many people show up for one in the evening before, and it's increasing. Even some of the regulars there that are regularly there to support the county commissioners, like Larry Ford, just have to admit, you know, yeah, that's more people than usually show up for these things. It's increasing. And he said to me, why do you think it's increasing? And I said, well, probably because nationally we're seeing elections happening because people are not happy. Maybe it's the beginning of some wave of change. And change makes some people very, very afraid and unhappy. So here's the next person and what they had to say.
This idea that we're having an emergency with crime in the county. As far as statistics go, I haven't seen any. Dale Matthews has done a great job covering this in the past year with relation to the levy.
It was fortunate that Dale Matthews was able to record that in an executive session, or otherwise we wouldn't have had a public record of the statements that Eric Shaftsman made.
We watched the entire Dale's presentation with Eric Shaftsma and Diane Hoover, and the level of heightened awareness based on arsenic and aluminum and iron, and it just wasn't there. There's no there.
Okay, let's be clear. This is not the Dale Matthews show. It's the Dale and Mike show. But and when they say me, I just happen to be there. If Mike had been there, they would have mentioned Mike too.
Hey, here, let me just be clear. My ego has no problem here.
Okay.
So the fact that they're giving you credit is not a problem to me. I'm fine with it. And
they're obviously talking about badcounty.com putting up these videos and not just
credit where it's due is no problem. And you didn't give yourself credit here, when we were talking about it a couple of minutes ago, that this may be some of the impetus of these larger crowds at these meetings, is the fact that more people know about it. Not only do you have regular watchers on this show, but then sometimes you get the news. Those people get the news out to their friends and neighbors, and all it takes is a few of those. And if half of the people that watch this show every night showed up down there at a weekly business session, they would be wondering what the heck's going on.
They really would be, and more people are showing up. Okay, we already know most of you are not going to come to the weekly business session. Okay, I accept that. Mike does not, but I do. Okay, I know that you're probably not coming.
I got a big problem with that.
But what you can do is you can talk to your neighbors, and you can say, here's what's happening. Just tell them what's happening. That's all. That's all we ask.
I'm too lazy to go to the weekly business session, but I'm hoping you won't be.
No, just tell your neighbors what's going on. You engage them in conversation a little bit. You talk about this kind of stuff anyway, and just every once in a while give them a clue about what's happening. Look at this stuff that's happening with the city. It's terrible. And you could use that as an example. So, and the stuff that's happening with this water contract, oh my gosh. So, people did not only talk about water quality and water contracts and that whole debacle. There's going to be so much more about that. But they also had some other things to say, and let's continue.
So to continue talking about the Fielder Dam testing, I want to commend the board for terminating the contract. And I think the question now is there any way that the county can avoid paying this outrageous $77,000 bill? Now, I suppose that Eric Shaftsma actually did do some work on this, and he did that in good faith. Although I think the way that he obtained the contract borders on fraudulent and certainly was misleading. So perhaps we should cut him some slack, perhaps not. But in any case, I don't think he's entitled to the entire $77,000. One of the reasons that I feel that way is when the contract was terminated, according to our information, he didn't immediately inform Shannon and Wilson of the termination of the contract, which allowed Shannon and Wilson to continue on doing work and running up the bill. And that seems inappropriate. And certainly any work that they did after that date shouldn't be something that the county should have to pay for. And in the contract, there's a clause 9.3, major breach. And I think that there are many things there, many of those clauses, where we could say, well, it looks like there could be some of these things that would apply, such as the way the contract was obtained that might violate the first clause. A, acts or omissions that jeopardize the health, safety, or security of any person. I wonder if Diane was actually told about the Army Corps of Engineers study when she was pressured to make the contract. That's an omission. Misuse of funds, which is clause B, Well, allowing Shannon and Wilson to continue on instead of immediately telling them the contract was terminated might fall into that category. I know this is a legal question, and I'm not a lawyer and don't even play one on TV, but it seems to me that Wally Hicks has already recused himself from advising on this legal matter and passed it to a subordinate. That's my understanding. But I don't see how the subordinate can be out from under any kind of pressure and conflict of interest working for Wally Hicks. I feel like the board should really contact outside independent legal counsel to see if there's any way that they can not pay this entire bill. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, that's very interesting stuff. Who was that man?
That was Steve Rouse. He reminds me of Raymond Smith, in that they both have this real laconic, this real slow delivery, and then he's saying stuff like very low key. Well, that borders on fraudulent, and it's like, whoa. You know, I was that borders, you know, and gnawing on the furniture. This guy, no, is saying, well, you know, perhaps we should not pay that contract. I like that style.
Right.
So,
well, and you would hope that the commissioners would not just be interested in you know, making sure someone that they have a relationship with outside of their normal duties, you know, not be concerned about making sure that he gets paid, but making sure that they're doing the very best, you know, that they can, you know, with the finances that they're charged with, you know, by the people in the county and for the people in the county.
Oh, now when would they start doing that? Now, when they're up for re-election? It's a little late, but that would be nice if they do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you would think that would be more of a priority now than it has been since they're running for election. But you know, this is the disconnect that we talk about every single night. Without this disconnect, there would be no show here. We'd be on here talking about stuff, and people would go, "Well, you know, that's not even an issue because none of that's happening."
Right.
You know, I mean, this is an easy problem to fix. But
one thing they should do, in my personal opinion, is they had already cut the check. That was a surprise to Simon Hare, for example. Simon Hare, who in my opinion has been at least on the doubting side of this thing, not sure that he wants this money to go off to this contract with Eric Shaftsma. Right. He's not part of these reindeer games, okay? Because he's got a red nose. That's a joke of another kind. So not interested in that, okay? So when he found out, we all found out together, Cheryl already knew, that the check had already been cut. He said, well, wait a minute, let's not send him the check until, according to the contract, we've got the results. And Cheryl said, well, you're not going to understand him anyway because that's very technical. Okay, let's take her at her word then, all right? That being the case, what you need to do, since the three commissioners don't know beans about this, you need to then have an outside agency look through those results. Now, Cheryl's not going to like that because what the outside agency is going to find, I'm going to predict, is this is all wrong. This is bogus. These details are wrong. And what the heck is this? And this isn't worth $77,000. But what that will do is it'll buy time, because there's people that are all over this thing, but they have to move quickly, because once that check's out the door, that's it. It's all over. So if Simon says, advice for you, Simon. Okay, hello, how you doing there, Simon? Advice for you. Insist that it be sent to, and not Nielsen Research or some other company that's local. Pick some firm in Portland or something, ABC firm, and have them look it over. This is going to take 2 or 3 weeks. That's going to be enough time for other people to say, now hold on a second. What about this and this and this and this and this? And maybe we can save tens of thousands of dollars on something that
I doubt it would take 3 weeks. If somebody tells you that it would take 3 weeks to look over, you know, some result, I don't think they're that technical. You might be buying into, a line from somebody. That's listen. Anybody that deals with this stuff on a regular basis can look down through the invoice and go, they know exactly what that is, and they should be able to tell you in a very short period of time what's legit and what isn't.
Now, Mike
No, go ahead.
Mike brought up the idea that if we weren't, no, you weren't saying if we weren't looking at this, nobody would know. You were saying that the only reason the show exists is because there's stuff going on that's just not right. Well,
right.
One of the reasons that we do this is because the Courier doesn't. Okay, but KJO absolutely doesn't. I mean, you wouldn't even know. I mean, you might know Bargain Roundup is happening, but you're not going to know what's happening in the news here locally, except if somebody in New Jersey robs somebody, and that's going to be on KJO's news, because that's their constant theme: is that we need a levy, and by the way, we need a levy. So it was real interesting to me to see KJO's version of what's going on with this water contract and with the arsenic scare. Arsenic in the water. Is there arsenic in the water? Well, we better stand by because there's arsenic in the water. So Mike's going to read it to you. Here's the KJO version of it. And KJO starts off by saying, research company assisting Grants Pass in detecting arsenic in Rogue River. Go ahead, Mike.
A Medford-based research company has offered to assist in testing for arsenic from the Rogue River and its tributaries. And of course, there's a problem with this already because, and maybe it is a Medford-based company, what's the name of that company, Dale?
Oh, Nielsen Research.
Nielsen Research. Maybe they are based in Medford, and we just, are normally used to talking about them as though they only exist here in Grants Pass. So
they're testing for arsenic. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Grants Pass City Manager Aaron Kubik said staff members were contacted last week by Nielsen Research Corporation in regard to arsenic testing on the city's water in response to last summer's removal of Fielder Dam on Evans Creek. As a community service, Kubik and Nielsen will be donating 52 arsenic water samples to the city. Staff will pair these samples with raw water samples that they are currently collecting to get a good picture of arsenic levels in the river.
Arsenic.
Yes. Okay. Initial sample results indicate that arsenic levels are incredibly low and will be largely undetectable at drinking water levels. Kubik said that the treatment plant is excited to host tours. They are. I would like a tour.
They're excited. Mike, why do they have to put this blather in there? We're so excited to host tours of our water treatment plant, and they're going to have junior high students, okay, middle school students if you insist. Oh, and they're going to be so excited. Hey, we get to go to the water treatment plant. Woohoo! I wonder if we get free samples.
Yes.
They're excited. They're excited to host tours. Come on.
I'd like to see it because I understand a little bit of the mechanics there, and I've done a little viewing of documentaries and stuff like that where they talk about mass water treatment, and it would be interesting to see what we're doing here and where the deficiencies are and what they claim they need to do in order to bring it up to a standard that will serve us well into the future.
Okay, good. Well, I'm interested as a news item. I don't believe I would have been when I was in junior high school.
Yeah. Oh, probably not. Yeah. I wouldn't have. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. Not had
okay. So now we're going to change over to two subjects that sound like they're the same, but they're not the same, but they're both about gravel mining. Here we go.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Matthews. I live at 2525 Leland Road in Sunny Valley, Josephine County, Oregon. I am attending and speaking at this public meeting to ask Mr. Hare and Mr. Heck a question. Mr. Hare, how can you, as a member of the Board of County Commissioners, be qualified to vote on procedures addressing the same brimstone application when you already recused yourself on grounds of bias towards this land use issue? Mr. Heck, how can you, as a member of the Board of County Commissioners, be qualified to vote on any procedures addressing the same brimstone application when you were skillfully removed for bias by Mr. Hare from hearing this issue at the public meeting dated December 7th, 2015? In both cases, this bias still remains an issue and is why you, Mr. Hare, suggested that LUBA should hear this case. Nothing has changed since December 7th, 2015. You are both still considered bias. So end of discussion. Let LUBA decide. Thank you for hearing me tonight.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. So it was interesting to watch the commissioners while she was saying this, because when she was saying that Mr. Heck were skillfully taken out by Mr. Hare because of bias, Keith Heck's going like this, and Simon Hare's going, and then she got to the point where you're both biased, and they were both going, no, we're
not. Did they address it in later comments?
Not much. You'll hear a little bit, I believe, on the clip that follows this next one. Mostly Simon here saying, "Well, you know, we can't render decisions when we're not, when we haven't advertised that we were going to be rendering decisions." She didn't ask them to render a decision. She just was pointing out the fact that they had both, in that case, on the Brimstone case, that's a little bit different than Sunny Valley. On the Brimstone case, that they had both could not make a decision as a quorum because both of them were kicked out of the decision-making process because of their bias. That left just Cheryl Walker. So if this comes back then from the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, stick with us here, you guys. If this comes back from them, then how are the commissioners going to make a decision when two of them have been bounced for bias? That's a sticky.
And the point that she makes is good. In that particular case, it would make sense to just go with what LUBA recommends because you only have one commissioner there. And listen, boy, how sad is it that we would, on any issue, be at the whim of Cheryl Walker alone by herself? Holy moly!
I agree with you. I agree. All right, here's what the next person had to say.
Good evening, Commissioners. Steve Rouse. I'm here representing Rogue Advocates, Williams, Oregon. And I would like to address a couple points about the Brimstone application in Sunny Valley.
I may have gotten that earlier guy's name wrong. I'm sorry.
You might have. Yes. He's the mystery man now.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. That was Diffendaffer.
Ah, yes, I thought it looked like and I forget his first name right off.
Is it Paul?
I think it is. I believe it is.
Which is different than Diefendorfer.
Yes.
Who would make a great name for a cat. Diefendorfer, that's his name. But yeah, that was Diffendaffer, and this is Steve Rouse. My apologies to everybody, including Mike.
Yes.
For whatever reason.
Sure.
I'd like to first comment on the county's actions in the LUBA appeal that was filed by Rogue Advocates and Pete Storm on the planning director's decision. At that December 7th hearing, which was the bias issue and didn't really occur, Commissioner Hare stated that the next step would be reviewed by LUBA. The county took no further action on that appeal. Therefore, the planning director's decision, which was the subject of the local appeal, became the final land use decision by Josephine County. Rogue Advocates appropriately filed the LUBA appeal on December 16th, while the applicant filed the writ of mandamus 1 week later after our appeal, perhaps in response to our appeal.
Okay, you've heard us mention writ of mandamus before.
Mm-hmm.
It's important if you have the money, right? It's all the justice that money will buy, okay? And as citizens, this is something we really need. We need to be able to take these characters to court occasionally. And a writ of mandamus says, as an example, we caught Cheryl Walker breaking the law. We had it on tape. And so I submitted the tape to the state elections division saying, here she just is telling us on this tape that we cannot violate the law. And then she violates the law blatantly. And they said, yes, it's true. We can see that she's done that. I said, okay, finally got it. What are you going to do? Well, we're debating about whether we really are going to enforce the law. I said, you know, really, I mean, we go through this effort to get this and you're not going to do anything. You're just laughing at us up there. And the lady kind of chuckled a little bit. A writ of mandamus could be brought against those people in the state elections division saying, you are not doing your job. You're paid to do this, and yet you're refusing to do your job. And it would put them, they would have to answer to a judge about why they are not doing their dang job.
Mm-hmm.
Writ of mandamus, only helpful if you can take it to a court outside Josephine County and you've got the money to do so.
We understand that Mr. Hicks has refused to produce the brimstone record to LUBA in a timely manner on behalf of Joe County. I assume the board is authorizing Mr. Hicks' actions at LUBA, as county policy is not to participate in LUBA unless directed by the board. I would like to know what the board's involvement is. Mr. Hicks filed a motion with LUBA on January 6th requesting a 3-month extension of time to file the record. LUBA rejected that motion on January 15th and ordered the record to be submitted no later than January 29th. No record has been filed, resulted in ongoing substantial prejudice of our rights for review. We request the boards to order Mr. Hicks to submit the record. Addressing the writ of mandamus, that writ was filed by the applicant. We understand the writ has been sent back to the county, and you have 2 options. One is to show cause, why the writ is invalid per state law, or in the alternative, the board may support a resolution in support of the writ to satisfy the court. We question how the board that lacked a quorum to hold a hearing on the application due to bias can then and now decide on a resolution to consider the writ for that same application.
Yeah, good point.
It cannot be supported by law if the applicant waived or extended the time required for the county to make its final land use decision. That is the critical element of the writ, time. Per section 5.2 of the planning director's decision, the applicant did extend the timeline per the county. Mr. Dole failed to identify this flaw in the writ that he submitted to the court. I appreciate your time. I'm going to submit more extended comments in written form. I would appreciate it if you take the time to read these so that you really see what's going on in these actions and take them into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now you can see that things are closing in on these guys. That seat's getting hotter.
I just want to know who this mandamus guy is.
Yes. And why is he writing something?
Yes.
He's basically had nothing to say about any of these things. This old rocking chair with this guy in it is getting hotter and hotter, and they just have no defense for most of this. And their defenses are pretty weak. And here you will now listen to Simon Hare and the way he tries to react to a couple of the things that came up. Here we go.
Mr. Rouse is correct that it has been referred by a judge back to the board for a decision, and we have scheduled it for a decision and findings to frankly accomplish what you're looking to do, Mr. Storm, have it go before LUBA. So, but Mr. Rouse, as always, although I may not agree with your testimony today, it's always interesting. So I appreciate you coming and filling us in, and I look forward to reading what you submitted.
That's nice.
Ms. Austin,
okay, he's going to talk about Catherine Austin in a moment. note something for everybody. If you're going to come to a weekly business session and you're going to hand in documents, be sure to also hand over a copy to the secretary, because then the commissioners, they don't always do this, although they're required by law to do so. They don't always do it. We know we're breaking the law and we don't care. Okay. They're supposed to then attach that to the official transcript, the official record of the meeting.
Right.
And they haven't always done that. As a matter of fact, it depends on the secretary, but they have at times, because I've seen the minutes of the meeting, sometimes they'll just say, Mike Jones stood and spoke. And that's it.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. That's all going to change. So now let's go back to our regularly scheduled programming.
The things that I think you presented, and I may forget, there you are, where you are. Some of them are accurate. There's 3453 is kind of a complex issue, and I encourage you to just continue in trying to figure out more about it.
Oh, that's nice.
To address others.
Yes.
I'm interested in hearing what the voters have to say on this issue, as this board has submitted several questions to the voters that are non-binding in nature. I've done 5
Several.
office, and I
in
will
the past
continue to do those on issues that I'm not sure about, and frankly are should be decisions out of my above my pay grade, as it's been alluded to here earlier.
100,000 a year.
People. I know you may not agree with that.
No, I
You
don't.
may have the decision made for you, and that's good, because
Really?
you will be given a ballot here in May, and you can make that decision as you are an individual or whoever you have influence over on that issue. But for me, I don't know. And when I'm forced with a decision to close the jail or take action on something, a tool in the tool chest, so to speak, I want to know what the people want to do. Unfortunately, I can't give you a definitive answer as to whether or not what the people say is exactly what I'm going to do, because
Really?
Measure 91 and the subsequent measures regarding marijuana, it didn't pass in Josephine County. It failed by 17,313 opposed, 17,311 for.
Mike, why is he talking about marijuana?
Yeah. And why is he giving the numbers? I don't get that.
Well, because we've seen him do this. Cheryl does it more often than Simon does. They lapse into all these details. Well, let me tell you the history of rocking chairs. No, we don't need to know that. But it's a way of sounding like they're smart and they're giving us information when they've changed the subject. He's now talking about marijuana. That's not 3453 as far as I know.
No, this is Simon's MO. That's what he does. And it comes off in the beginning when you start watching Simon, you register that as, wow, this is an intelligent, well-spoken young man. He just has a gift for very rotely spewing out a long list of words that start off on one end of the issue and end on the other and are non-substantive, generally speaking. He will, dance around within the guidelines of a particular subject, and he does know more about some subjects than others. But a lot of this is to put a whole lot of vibrations out into the air and to get you to think some way or the other about Simon Hare as a person. Not forget about the topic. Doesn't matter. He's trying to put a haze on your brain, and it's quite effective, actually.
These are not the commissioners you're criticizing.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so back by popular demand, a number of people have asked to see this clip. Here's Wally Hicks in the little back room with the commissioners, and they're working out details of how they're going to put out this plan. As Simon says, this might be decided for you. You think? You think that these commissioners, especially Cheryl, are not telling the governor if not on a daily basis, every other day, where it's an emergency, it's an emergency, it's an emergency. And you know, the police are doing that, the sheriff. It's an emergency, it's an emergency. You need to take this, everybody wants this. Well, I'm getting just as many calls for this as against it, says Cheryl Walker. No, you're not. No, you're not. Okay?
And listen, that's the thing that you have to be very, very worried about here, is because you know, he's talked about this question that's going to be on the ballot as though it was asked in such a way that is fair and even-handed. But what I suspect that it will be is a push poll. In other words, you ask the question in a certain way to generate the answer that you want, and then you take that answer and you go, well, this is the marching orders of the people of the county, and that this is the danger we're facing here.
This is exactly like the advisory question that they sent out with the bill to all the property owners. They said, oh, well, we're being totally fair on this. And it's got all this happy stuff about why the levy is a wonderful idea. And it's included in with your bill, right? And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you used to the idea that this is going to happen. Look at all the advantages. Look at all the good things. That's what this is about. It's a free way to send to you information about their plans. Now, here's Wally Hicks in the back room. Listen carefully to what Wally has to say about the wording of this advisory question. Here he is in his own words.
The one thing that I would want to figure out a way to say that if any additional revenue generating mechanism were to be needed to satisfy the full need of the criminal justice system, that would have to go to the voters. But revenue generated would be matched through this provision, dollar for dollar, by the state, as long as this agreement were in place.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Yeah, and yeah, I'll try not to be too clear or too precise in terms of what the agreement would involve, because you know we don't
know what that agreement
whatever agreement we come to if this ends up going through.
Elected legal counsel.
I suspect that he regretted that statement from the time it left his lips, because he probably knew that was going to come back to haunt him. Now, it's interesting the way Simon talks about it. It's almost like, oh, 3453, that's not a bad thing. When he says that the state will match what the county's contribution is. Well, that would make it sound like whatever we take in taxation, they'll give us, you know, a check matching that. But I suspect what's going to happen is they're going to say, oh, yes, and along with that, and there has been some research into it, and I think it's pretty clear at this point that they do have the power to institute a levy without a vote of the people, and they'll say that it's essentially to make up for what the state is having to pay out to us.
Also, Mike, sorry to interrupt, but the other thing is, as we've mentioned on the show a couple of times, that Wally Hicks has told us, and he told all of you, you've seen it, that the protection afforded by our charter is like tissue paper, and that the commissioners and certainly the governor can come anytime, especially during an emergency, and say, here's the way things have to be. This is an emergency. And it was been proven to me, the governor, that this is an emergency. Therefore, we're going to have to impose, sorry about this, above your charter, because it's happened before. 3 times. We're going to have to step on that charter, and we're going to do it this way. And here is a income tax. Oh, no, say the friends of the commissioners. That's not possible. It's already happened. So it's like saying, oh, we can't possibly use the road funds. It's already happened. Well, we can't possibly do this. That's already happened. We can't loan anybody from the various departments to the sheriff's department to help out with their staffing. No, we can't do that. It's already happened. So stop telling me that things can't happen that have already happened.
Yeah.
This is a danger.
Yeah, so what you're referring to in terms of violating the charter that's already happened, you're talking about commissioner compensation and some of the other annotations that they have added, or the annotations which are to document the fact that our the part of our charter that speaks to people's, it's sort of like our own Bill of Rights.
That's correct.
For our charter. Those two are negated in some way, and
you had the ability,
just waiting for an opportunity.
Sorry, you had the ability to say yes or no to fees. Yes, we like these fees. Right. No, we don't. And they got so many signatures together, and they changed our charter. The people did. They put it on a ballot, and they won, and they got it in there. And then the commissioners, not these commissioners, but previous ones, they went to court to get the court to overturn that because they didn't like it. And the court said, okay, partly because nobody knew to show up. And Steve Rich laughed about that. Oh, I won because nobody showed up. He laughed about it. I'm not making that up. He thought it was funny. That was Steve Rich, our elected legal counsel from before. And now this guy's so much better, of course. Of course he is. And so this can happen again. That's our charter. As Wally told us back when he was talking to regular people and not just to the commissioners, this charter doesn't afford any protection. The only protection you have will be if you get a couple of people in there who are oriented toward the people, they're going to say, well, yes, the court says we don't have to, but we're going to. What do you mean you're going to? Like that guy said to me, exactly. What do you mean you're going to hand it over to the people? What do you mean you're going to hand it over to the people? Yeah. And so we're going to do it that way because that's what the people want. Well, the charter doesn't have to be obeyed. Yeah, but we're going to. Like the judge told Sandy Casanelli when she held up her hand, I will not allow you to swear to uphold the charter. What? That's what she said. That's Lindy Baker.
Well, I'm sure you mean wouldn't allow her to take an oath to the charter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the judge can't say anything about her upholding the charter. That's none of her business.
Wouldn't let her swear to uphold the charter, to take an oath to it. I'm going to do it anyway. I won't get a chance, but we can all dream, right? And so if you get that in there, then I'm going to do it. Well, I'm throwing you out of office on the first day. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah,
great.
I think that would be very controversial on the part of a judge.
Just a little bit, yes.
To tell you that you couldn't take an oath to the county charter, that would really go over well. I mean, I think really most people would be totally fine with you taking an oath to the charter. For crying out loud, it's the charter.
I've only found 2 people willing to do that. I'm one of them, and you already know who the other one is. It's Ray Smith. Willing to do so, of course. Going to swear to uphold the charter. Now you watch, every candidate and their brother is going to say, I'm going to do it too. Yeah.
Well, good.
You never really thought of it, did you? Okay. Well, good. Yes, that's real good. Thank you. Thank you for deciding to uphold the charter. So that's our show for this evening. There's still much more that's out there happening. We're not running out of material on an everyday basis. No way. And we're happy to bring you this kind of stuff. And we tell you what's happening behind the scenes too. You're informed. All that we ask that you do, Mike's asking a little bit more. All I'm asking you to do is please talk to your neighbors about this kind of stuff and at least tell them what you've heard. Even if you tell them, those stupid guys, I heard them again, and boy, they're just as full of it now as they ever will. Okay, ever were. All right. I can live with that. Can you live with that, Mike?
Okay.